Okay, let's unpack this. The first thing that absolutely hits you, like exploding right out of the sources about Ginny and Georgia season 3, is that central jaw-dropping dramatic hook. Forget jail for a second because Georgia Miller isn't in prison.
Nope.
No, the unexpected twist, just revealed in your sources, is that she is pregnant.
Mm.
It's that immediate wild turn that jumps out as the starting point for this deep dive.
Yeah, it really sets a different kind of tone, doesn't it?
Welcome to the deep dive. This is where we take a stack of your sources, articles, interviews, research, maybe even your own notes, and we try to extract the most important nuggets of knowledge and insight.
Think of it as a shortcut to being well-informed. We pull out the surprising facts, the connections.
And hopefully just enough humor, maybe, to keep you hooked on the details. Today, we're taking a deep dive into all you need to know about Ginny and Georgia Season 3, and we're guided entirely by the materials you've shared with us.
And we've got a fantastic stack today, actually. There are interviews directly with the showrunners, Sarah Lampert and Sarah Glinsky.
Yep, some really sharp reviews of the Season 2 that capture key plot points and character journeys.
Plus some concrete insights into the show's production timeline, which is always interesting.
And there's even this really fascinating psychological analysis applying Freudian concepts to Georgia herself. Which, wow.
Yeah, that one's a bit different. Definitely adds a layer.
So our mission is clear. Walk you through the core events of Season 3. Really dig into the major character developments and relationships.
Explore how the show tackles complex social issues, and the sources spend a lot of time on that, you know?
Right, and give you a peek at what's hinted for the future. And remember, everything we discuss comes only from the information right here in your sources.
Get ready for your shortcut to being well-informed on this very wild ride of a season.
So where do we even start? Well, I guess we have to jump right in with where Season 3 picks up. Because the sources make it absolutely clear that the show does not shy away from that massive cliffhanger.
That's absolutely right. If you remember the end of Season 2, and the sources definitely make sure to remind us of this really dramatic moment, the major cliffhanger was Georgia being arrested on her wedding night.
Yeah, literally at the wedding reception.
The charge, the murder of Tom Fuller, Cynthia's husband. It was a truly shocking way to end things.
It really was.
And Season 3, as the sources describe it, immediately frames itself around Georgia's legal battle. It forces her to confront the stark, terrifying reality of potentially facing a life sentence.
And the show, according to these sources, really emphasizes the gravity of this. It's not like a minor charge she can brush off.
Not at all. Sources like Decider point out that if convicted, she could face life in prison without parole.
Wow.
And the trailer footage mentioned also reinforces that chilling possibility. This isn't just another secret she can outrun or, charm her way out of.
No way. This is the most severe consequence for her actions we've ever seen her face, right?
By far. And her new husband, Paul, is immediately thrown into this absolute chaos.
Right. The sources indicate he steps up significantly, at least in this initial phase. We learn he hires a high-powered fancy lawyer for her defense?
Yep, a fancy lawyer. And the Decider review suggests that despite the incredibly serious nature of the charges, Paul initially appears unconditionally on her side, like fully supporting her.
That initial unwavering belief from him, that feels like a critical piece of the early season puzzle.
Definitely. Sets up potential conflict later, perhaps.
So the central question for a large part of Season 3, based on these sources, becomes, how on earth does Georgia avoid ending up behind bars?
Right, because it seems pretty dire.
And the sources reveal that the finale provides this pivotal answer, a moment that is both, I guess, a triumph for Georgia and, as the sources really highlight, morally.
Complex.
Very complex. An article in EW explicitly states that she narrowly avoids this fate thanks entirely to her children.
Entirely. Wow. Okay.
Yes. And the sources really zero in on the crucial detail. It was Ginny's idea to have Austin testify in court.
Ginny's idea. Okay. Now, this is where the sources present a really fascinating point of inconsistency, something we absolutely need to unpack.
Okay, yeah, let's get into that. What exactly do the different sources say about Austin's testimony? Because this sounds important.
Okay. The EW source plainly states that Austin testified he saw his father, Gil, commit the crime, presumably meaning Gil killed Tom Fuller.
Okay, so he points the finger at Gil.
But then, the Decider review offers a slightly different and arguably more revealing perspective. It states that Austin was actually the lone witness to Georgia killing Tom Fuller.
Wait, he saw Georgia do it?
That's what Decider says he saw. and that he had told Ginny what he saw in a flashback sequence showing the night of the arrest.
Wow. Okay, hold on. So if we piece those two accounts together, the implication from the sources is pretty heavy, isn't it?
It is.
Austin didn't see Gil kill Tom. He saw his mother commit the murder.
Seems that way based on piecing it together.
And Ginny, in a desperate act to save Georgia from prison, either convinced or perhaps even coached her younger brother to lie on the witness stand.
That appears to be the strong implication, yes. Lie and say he saw Gil instead.
Oh my God. That layers an incredible amount of moral weight onto Ginny and uses Austin in such a deeply problematic way.
It does, and the sources don't shy away from emphasizing the profound cost of this specific escape, especially for Austin.
I bet.
The interviewer in the EWE piece describes the moment of seeing Austin on the stand as watching the corruption of this innocent child.
Oof. Yeah, you can just picture that.
You really feel the impact of this lie on him, the burden he's now carrying. Both Decider and EW mention Austin's palpable anger in his final scenes.
Anger. Okay. Not just sadness.
Anger.
Mm-hmm.
And the showrunners themselves, Sarah Glinsky and Sarah Lampert, are quoted in EW stating unequivocally that Austin has changed and that there's no going back.
No going back.
His childhood innocence, his untainted view of his mother, it's irrevocably altered by what he witnessed and then what he was, made to do.
So Georgia is out of immediate prison danger, thanks to this highly questionable tactic.
Huh.
But she's far from free, right? What's the immediate aftermath like for her and the family, according to the sources?
Right, she's not exactly skipping off into the sunset. The Decider review and the trailer footage both confirm that she is released on bail, but she's placed under house arrest.
That was arrest, okay.
There's that specific grounding detail of the ankle bracelet, which the sources mentioned.
The ankle bracelet.
And the trailer even highlights the sound of it beeping, like this constant physical, irritating reminder of her precarious situation, even when she's at home.
And the truth about what Austin actually saw, that comes out pretty quickly between Georgia and Ginny, doesn't it?
It does almost immediately, it seems. Sources state that Ginny reveals to Georgia that Austin saw everything he witnessed her killing Tom.
Oh, wow. So Ginny tells her.
Yes. And this revelation triggers a significant, really raw breakdown for Georgia, detailed vividly in the Decider review.
A breakdown. What does that look like?
She finally explains, maybe more honestly than ever before, that the only reason she killed her previous husbands, Anthony and Kenny, and why she fled to Wellsbury in the first place, was to protect her children. She felt cornered, backed into a wall, and her extreme actions were, in her mind, the only way to keep her kids safe.
Okay, that's her rationale.
But now, seeing Austin directly involved, having witnessed her dark secret and then being used to lie about it, she feels she has fundamentally failed in her primary mission as a mother.
Yeah, that makes sense. It backfired.
Exactly. It leads to that incredibly vulnerable, heartbreaking line, "I'm a bad mom."
Ouch. But even in that moment of George's confession and despair, the core, really complex bond between her and Ginny, it shines through, doesn't it? Or maybe shines isn't the right word.
It persists. Yeah, absolutely. Ginny's reaction is depicted as crucial. The Decider review notes that despite the weight of her mother's admission and her own complicity, Ginny cries, but then fiercely reassures Georgia, saying, "No, you're my mom and you did protect us."
Wow. Even after all that.
It reinforces that central, often problematic theme that defines their relationship. It's us against the world.
Right, that line.
Even after everything, even after being implicated in this terrible secret and cover-up, Ginny still chooses to stand by her mother's side. It highlights the deep, maybe codependent loyalty between them.
So season 3 kicks off with this incredibly high-stakes legal drama resolved through a morally dubious act involving the most innocent character.
Yeah, poor Austin.
Leading to immediate and painful emotional fallout. It's a powerful opening that immediately reshapes that core mother-daughter dynamic.
Definitely.
So for you, the listener, understanding this sequence of events, the arrest, the trial, the lie, the cost to Austin, and that raw conversation between Georgia and Ginny, it really gives you a shortcut to grasping the central thrust of season 3 right from the start.
Yeah, it lays bare the extreme lengths Georgia will go to, supposedly to protect her kids, and the ripple effects of her secrets. It's intense.
Building on that intense and painful aftermath, the sources really pivot to explore how this near catastrophe profoundly impacts the characters, especially within the Miller family itself.
Right. It's not just about resolving the legal plot. It's about the deep, lasting internal shifts these events trigger.
And one big question that the showrunners address directly in the sources is whether this experience, coming so close to losing everything, especially her children, truly changes Georgia at her core. Like, can she actually change?
Yes, the showrunners spend a significant amount of time discussing Georgia's potential for change. Sarah Glinsky states in the EW interview that Georgia is definitely going to try to change.
Gotta try, okay.
She explains that the stakes were higher than ever this season. Georgia didn't just face losing her children physically to prison, she faced the very real risk of losing them emotionally forever if she didn't fundamentally alter her path.
And Sarah Lampert adds to that, sort of underlining the urgency, right? She says Georgia has to make a genuine effort because she finally understands the gravity of the situation. Ginny and Austin are going to be done with her if she doesn't.
Exactly. That realization that her protective instincts, taken to murderous extremes, are now actively damaging the very people she's trying to protect is a powerful motivator, according to the sources. It's like her methods are finally catching up to her in the worst way.
Lampert also describes Season 3 as focusing on the breaking of Georgia Miller with the hope to rebuild.
Breaking with the hope to rebuild. That's quite a phrase.
Yeah, it suggests this isn't just a minor adjustment. The intention, as described in the sources, is to sort of dismantle Georgia's defense mechanisms and coping strategies, the secrets, the lies, the running, the extreme actions.
I love it.
In order to potentially build a more authentic, maybe healthier person.
That seems to be the hope, yeah.
And it's really interesting here how the sources connect this character arc to the show's collaboration with outside experts. We learned that the show has worked closely with organizations like Mental Health America and psychologist Dr. Taji Huang since Season 1.
Yes, they consult with them specifically to ensure authentic portrayals of the characters' mental health journeys, which is pretty commendable.
Definitely. And Dr. Huang's advice, as recounted by Lampert, was particularly relevant to Georgia's Season 3 arc. The expert advised that Georgia needed to be broken down emotionally and psychologically.
Needed to be broken down.
Yeah, to truly understand that her actions, however well-intentioned in her own mind, have severe, real consequences, not just for others, but for her own children and her relationships with them.
Wow, so the expert advice was basically, you have to tear her down to build her back up.
Seems like it. This expert consultation really underscores the show's intention to explore the psychological underpinnings of Georgia's actions seriously. Meanwhile, while Georgia is grappling with being broken down for potential rebuilding, Ginny is also portrayed as profoundly changed by the events of this season.
Oh, for sure. The sources emphasize that Ginny is fundamentally altered by witnessing her mother's arrest, learning the full truth, and her own role in the cover-up.
Sarah Glinsky is quite direct about this, right? Stating, Ginny has changed. There's no going back.
Yep, no going back for Ginny either. The Decider review and trailer dialogue highlight Ginny's internal struggle. She's not just dealing with the external drama, she's grappling with the reality of her mother's capacity for violence.
And the heavy moral weight of her own actions lying to protect Georgia, using her little brother to do it.
Exactly. It's a massive burden for a teenager.
You can really feel that internal conflict in the trailer dialogue quoted in one of the sources. Ginny says, like, voice tight with anxiety, I've been defending my mom to everyone. I am trying so hard to protect her, but I don't even know if it's the right thing to do.
Oof.
I don't want my mom to go to prison. Do you think she did this? That one line just captures the immense pressure and doubt she's under, questioning her own moral compass while still feeling fiercely loyal to her mother.
It's that impossible position she's always in.
Her mental health struggles, which have been a consistent and central theme of the show, take center stage again this season, according to multiple sources.
Yeah, Decider, Quinnipiac, and El Diablo all note that her struggle with self-harm is prominent.
Right. But it's crucial to highlight, as these sources do, that the show is praised for its authentic portrayal of self-harm and the equally important step of seeking professional help.
That's a really important distinction. It's not just showing the struggle, but also a path towards managing it.
Exactly. The sources point out specific moments, Ginny making the call to her therapist, and her dad, Zion, suggesting she reach out for support.
Good old Zion.
Sources like Decider note that witnessing something as traumatic as her mother's arrest is a surefire way to regress into self-harm, making Ginny's decision to actively seek help, rather than withdrawing or succumbing, a really powerful part of her arc this season.
Absolutely. And this positive portrayal of accessing mental health support is directly linked back to the show's ongoing consultation with Dr. Huang and Mental Health America. It shows how that expert input translates right into the storyline.
The sources also revisit and, it sounds like, deepen the exploration of Ginny's identity struggles, particularly her experiences with racism as a biracial person.
Yeah, and the challenges she faces when her white mother doesn't fully grasp the nuances of those experiences.
Right. Quinnipiac and El Diablo mention this as a key theme, citing the conflict with her English teacher as a specific example from previous seasons, presumably echoed or built upon here.
And it's also noted, particularly in El Diablo, that the show's approach to depicting race issues saw improvement in Season 2 after some initial backlash in Season 1.
Okay, so they're learning and adapting.
Suggesting the writers are striving for a more nuanced and accurate representation, which is good to hear.
And of course, we can't discuss the family's shifts without revisiting Austin. As we mentioned when talking about the trial, the showrunners are definitive. He is changed by these events, and there's no going back.
Yeah, that phrase keeps coming up for the kids.
His trauma from witnessing the murder and then being used in legal maneuvering is significant and will clearly have lasting effects, as emphasized in both The Cider and EW.
Poor kid. He's seen too much.
This whole segment really demonstrates how Ginny in Georgia uses its intense, dramatic plot points as catalysts for deep and often painful character development.
Yeah, it's not just plot for plot's sake.
The focus on the mental health journeys of both Ginny and Georgia, informed by consultations with mental health professionals, adds that layer of authenticity and seriousness that the sources highlight.
So for you, the listener, understanding these profound internal shifts gives you a much deeper insight into who these characters are becoming, beyond just the twists and turns. It shows how the show attempts to grapple with the psychological weight of their experiences.
Okay, stepping outside the intense core Miller family drama for a moment. The sources also spend time highlighting the other significant characters and relationships in Wellsbury that play crucial roles in Season 3.
Right, the whole ecosystem of the town.
This includes everything from George's perpetually complicated romantic life to the complex dynamics within the Monge friend group.
And George's love life continues to be a major source of tension and plot, doesn't it? The sources confirm a big development on that front this season.
Oh, yeah. The long, simmering, almost mythical will they, won't they dynamic with Joe, the owner of the Blue Farm Cafe.
Joe.
It finally took a significant step forward. Sources explicitly state that Joe and Georgia finally slept together this season.
Finally, after all that build-up.
The showrunners offer some really interesting insight into why this moment happened now. Sarah Lampert explains that as Georgia's carefully constructed world is breaking down around her,
Yeah.
Joe is the person who's left standing when the dust settles.
Huh. Okay, so he's the steady one.
It suggests that Joe's steadiness and, foundational nature are what Georgia needs or gravitates towards when her usual chaotic coping mechanisms fail her.
Lampert also provides a fascinating comparative analysis of Georgia's three main romantic contenders, Zion, Paul, and Joe. She describes Zion as Georgia's first love, representing freedom and adventure from their youth.
Right, the wild days.
Paul, her new husband, represents something quite different. Lampert characterizes their connection as partly about status and maybe transactional love.
Transactional, ooh.
They're both image conscious, and Lampert suggests Paul struggles significantly when Georgia's image is severely threatened by the murder charge, implying he can't take the heat that comes with her reality despite his initial support.
Even though he might have valid reasons for doubting her innocence at that point.
Sure, but the focus here seems to be on his concern for image.
And Joe. How does he fit into this trio, according to Lampert?
Lampert says Joe is fundamentally different because he doesn't care about image at all. What he values and what he apparently sees in Georgia is loyalty and family, which Lampert identifies as Georgia's deepest core values, maybe buried under everything else.
Interesting. So Joe sees the real Georgia.
Perhaps the implication is that Georgia won't truly be ready for or even recognize what Joe offers until she's able to shed her defenses and be her most authentic self, maybe broken down as she is this season.
It's a complex romantic triangle for sure.
And Lampert notes, maybe surprisingly, that there's a really even split among viewers rooting for Paul, Zion, and Joe, which highlights how well the show has built compelling cases for each relationship in the audience's eyes.
Yeah, the shipping wars are probably intense.
Circling back to Paul, though, despite initially seeming like the supportive husband hiring her lawyer, the sources confirm his doubts surface pretty clearly. The Decider review notes that Paul confides in Zion, admitting he's not sure Georgia's innocent.
Okay, confides in Zion. That's a big step.
And this moment directly aligns with Lampert's observation about him struggling when Georgia's facade and image are shattered by the reality of her crimes.
Zion is also present in the picture, offering support. Right.
Yeah, sources like Decider mention him showing up, helping out, even cooking dinner for the family, providing a stable presence.
Good dad, Zion.
And there's a particularly notable line from Zion to Georgia, highlighted in a Reddit source, where he tells her that he doesn't even want to know some of the secrets she must be keeping.
Wow, that's honest.
It's a clear acknowledgement from Zion that he knows there's a deep dark side to Georgia, but he's made a conscious choice not to fully engage with or probe into that darkness. He's preserving a certain boundary.
Okay, moving to the younger characters. The sources also spend time discussing the Emma and friend group, Maxine, Abby, Nora, and Jenny, and their individual struggles, focusing particularly on Max and Marcus this season.
Yes. Sources, including the interviewer in the EW piece, express a lot of sympathy for Max this season, saying they felt bad for her.
Oh, Max.
Well, Sarah Lampert offers a thoughtful perspective on Max and Marcus, describing them as two sides of the same coin, experiencing similar underlying struggles but presenting them in very different ways.
Okay, twins, but different expressions of struggle.
Lampert suggests that Max is neurodivergent, which means she doesn't always have the tools to get what she wants, which is connection, leading to her worrying that she can be too much for others.
Oh, that description of Max's struggle for connection and fear of being too much, that feels very real and relatable for a lot of people.
Yeah, it adds depth to her character. And the sources also point out a significant burden placed upon her this season. Sarah Glinsky notes that Max is shouldering a lot of responsibility.
How so?
Her parents, particularly in season 3, put a lot on her to fix things and care for everyone, especially her twin brother Marcus.
Ugh, that's an incredibly heavy weight for a teenager to bear, becoming the emotional anchor for her family and friends. Despite those heavier themes surrounding Max, sources like Decider also praise Sarah Weisglass's performance, noting that she brings a necessary hit of humor and lightness to the show.
She does have great comedic timing,
providing comedic relief even amidst the drama. The detail about Max joking about sex, even with her mom, is mentioned as an example of this ability to inject humor.
Gotta love Max's lines.
Then there's Marcus. His storyline centrally focuses on his struggle with depression this season, right? That's mentioned by Quinnipiac and El Diablo.
Yes. Sources detail him slipping, using alcohol, and engaging in risky behaviors as coping mechanisms.
Okay.
And El Diablo specifically highlights that one episode dedicates its perspective entirely to Marcus's point of view, which is intended to help viewers recognize and understand the signs of depression.
That's a powerful way to do it.
And this focus is explicitly linked back to the show's consultation with mental health experts, ensuring a more accurate and sensitive portrayal, as noted in Quinnipiac and El Diablo.
And Abby, another member of the Man Group, also has a storyline that delves into a serious and sensitive issue.
Yeah, El Diablo notes her struggle with body dysmorphia, specifically depicting her taping her legs together in an effort to make them look skinnier.
Oh, wow. That's intense, too.
These individual storylines within the supporting cast lead into a broader point that multiple sources praise: the show's willingness and perceived effectiveness in handling a wide range of complex social issues relevant to teenagers.
Yeah, it seems like they don't shy away from much.
Sources list a significant number of these mature topics that Season 3 tackles: self-harm, body dysmorphia, anxiety, depression, sexual content, drug use, alcohol use, racism, abuse, and, murder.
Just casually throwing murder in there with the rest.
Right. It's quite the list.
It's interesting that El Diablo includes different perspectives on this from a parent and a student on whether the show handles these topics appropriately.
What did they say?
The parent's view is that they are accurately portrayed and relatable to real-life teenage struggles, feeling that these issues are often not seen enough in shows aimed at teens.
Okay, so a positive take there.
The student agrees that it's a good show that depicts what teenagers go through, though feels some topics might have been slightly overdone, maybe, suggesting there's a balance to be struck.
Sure, that's fair. Finding the right balance is always tricky with sensitive topics.
Regardless of whether every viewer feels the execution is perfect, the sources highlight that the show is clearly engaging with these difficult subjects in a way that resonates with its target audience.
And there's that moment of dark meta-humor highlighted in Decider, where Max jokes that the murder wouldn't even make it onto a podcast.
A little wink to the audience about just how much drama is packed into Wellsbury.
Exactly.
This whole section provides a window into the rich tapestry of relationships and significant social issues woven throughout Season 3.
It shows how the supporting characters and their distinct struggles are used to explore challenging, relatable experiences faced by young people today.
With sources acknowledging the show's clear intention and it's often praised authenticity in portraying aspects of mental health, identity, and trauma. Now, let's shift gears a bit. We've talked about the plot, the character changes, the relationships. But one of the sources you provided offers this really unique and frankly fascinating perspective.
Oh, yeah, the psychoanalysis one.
Exactly. Attempting to unpack Georgia's core motivations on a much deeper level by applying a specific psychological lens uses Freudian psychoanalysis to try and understand why she does the extreme things she does, particularly the murders.
Yes, it's a compelling piece. It utilizes Sigmund Freud's structural model of personality, the id, the ego, and the superego as a framework to analyze George's character. It's definitely one way presented in this source to think about the internal forces driving her actions.
That sounds complex.
Yeah.
Can you break down these Freudian concepts as this source explains them, maybe in a way that's a bit more accessible for, us non-psychologists?
Absolutely, I'll try. So think of the id as the most basic, primal part of the personality. It's entirely unconscious. The source describes it as illogical, amoral, and driven purely by instinct and the pleasure principle.
Pleasure principle.
Yeah, it just wants immediate satisfaction of needs or relief from tension right now without any regard for reality or consequences. It's like the impulsive, demanding toddler within us all.
Got it. Inner toddler demanding gratification.
Then there's the ego. It develops from the id as a person interacts with the outside world. The source says it operates based on the reality principle.
Okay, reality checks in.
Right. Its job is to mediate between the ad's demands and the constraints of reality. It's the logical, rational part that plans, solves problems, and tries to avoid pain or punishment. It spans conscious, preconscious, and unconscious thoughts.
So the ego is like the manager.
Kind of. But, and this is key for the analysis of Georgia, this source points out that the ego can become servile to the id, essentially bending to its powerful impulses rather than truly controlling them.
Okay. So the manager might just go along with the toddler's demands.
Could happen. Finally, the superego. This is like the internalized parent or societal rules. It develops as a child internalizes moral standards, often from their parents.
Our conscience.
Exactly. It has a conscience that makes us feel guilty for doing or even thinking wrong things, and an ego ideal for what we aspire to be. It's our moral compass.
Makes sense.
But the source notes that the superego can be underdeveloped if someone grows up in an environment without sufficient love or stable moral guidance. In a problematic family.
Okay, that helps put the pieces together. Aid, impulse, ego, reality manager, maybe weak. Superego, morality, maybe underdeveloped. So how does the source use these three parts to analyze Georgia and her actions, particularly the murders?
So the core argument presented in this source is that Georgia has a significant imbalance among her aid, ego, and superego. An imbalance.
And this imbalance, they suggest, is actually represented by the three murders she commits throughout her life: Anthony, Kenny, and Tom.
Wow, okay. An imbalance leading to murder. How so?
The analysis argues that her id is overly dominant. It's too strong for her ego to effectively manage or control its primitive impulses.
The toddler is running the show.
Basically. Instead of the ego being in charge, it becomes servile. The source uses Freud's analogy of a rider, ego, barely controlling a powerful horse and often just guiding it where the horse is already determined to go.
Okay, I can picture that.
And critically, the source posits that Georgia's superego is severely underdeveloped.
Right, because of her upbringing.
Exactly. They link this directly to her traumatic childhood, abusive stepfather, drug-dependent mother, raised without consistent love or a stable environment needed to develop a strong internal moral compass.
Yeah.
According to this interpretation, this underdeveloped superego is why she shows little hesitation to aggress against others when her needs or impulses are triggered. The moral barrier just isn't strong enough. That's a powerful psychological explanation for her behavior. How does the source use the specific murders to illustrate this imbalance? Like, walk us through them with this lens.
Okay, so for Anthony Green, her first husband, remember, she impulsively put pills in his drink after he threatened to call social services and put Ginny back in foster care if Georgia left him.
Right, the immediate threat.
The analysis sees this as her dominant id taking over completely, acting purely on the primitive impulse for immediate tension relief and eliminating the threat without planning or moral consideration in that specific moment. Pure reaction.
Okay, id-driven impulse. What about Kenny?
For Kenny Drexel, her second husband, she poisoned his protein shake after he molested Ginny and later disposed of his ashes in fireworks.
A bit more planned, that one.
Exactly. The source's analysis views this slightly differently as Georgia's ego being more involved. She plans the method, poison, and the cover-up, ashes, neatly to avoid punishment.
So the manager stepped in a bit more.
Yeah, it shows a degree of rational planning, the ego trying to manage the consequences. But the underlying drive is still the protective impulse stemming from the id's instinct to eliminate a threat to her child. The ego is serving the id's goal, just doing it more carefully.
Got it. Ego serves the id. And Tom.
Finally, for Tom Fuller. She strangled him with a pillow while visiting Cynthia, who was struggling with his prolonged illness and had recently helped Georgia with the Gills situation.
Right. This felt different somehow.
The analysis suggests this act shows her underdeveloped superego. Even though the source notes she felt some guilt, evidenced by her crying afterwards.
The crying, okay.
That weak moral compass, the underdeveloped superego, didn't prevent the action. The motivation, according to the source, is still rooted in her basic instincts. In this case, maybe a distorted sense of loyalty or need to relieve suffering for someone who had helped her. It shows the life instinct, connection attachment, intertwined with the death instinct, aggression, and the superego wasn't strong enough to stop it.
So the crying shows some awareness or guilt kicking in, but the lack of a strong superego means it's not enough to actually stop her. What does this analysis conclude about the fundamental drivers behind Georgia's extreme actions, then?
The analysis concludes that Georgia's most extreme behaviors, particularly the murders, are fundamentally motivated by her life and death instincts, which are part of the id, activated by a perceived need.
Life and death instincts. Explain those quickly.
The life instinct is seen in her actions aimed at preserving her own life and her children's safety, like with Anthony and Kenny, or helping someone she feels affection or attachment towards, like Cynthia. It's about connection. The death instinct in this view is channeled outwards as aggression manifesting as the murders themselves, as a means to achieve the aims of the life instinct when she feels threatened or cornered. Aggression in service of preservation, basically.
Okay, wow. This segment, drawing directly from that specific psychological analysis found in your sources, offers a truly fascinating, maybe even controversial, but research-backed perspective on why Georgia behaves in such extreme ways.
It's definitely a specific theoretical lens.
It provides a framework for understanding her actions that goes beyond just the plot, connecting her chaotic present to her traumatic past and suggesting deep-seated psychological roots for her maladaptive coping mechanisms.
It's a unique lens on the character, for sure, and provides maybe an aha moment for understanding the potential method behind what often seems like her madness, all based on the material you provided.
Okay, so as Season 3 draws to a close, the sources reveal some significant developments that don't just wrap up the current story, but clearly point the way towards where the show is heading next, particularly by bringing Georgia's past quite literally into her present.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest reveals highlighted in the sources about the Season 3 finale. According to EW, at the very end of the season, Georgia's mother and her stepfather actually roll into town.
Wait, what? Her mom and stepfather? The ones from her traumatic backstory?
The very same. They show up in Wellsbury.
Oh my God. After all Georgia's done to escape her past and create this new life, the literal origins of her trauma and secrets just show it on her doorstep.
Talk about the past catching up with you.
And the sources explicitly link this arrival to the foundational theme of the upcoming season, right?
Yes. Showrunner Sarah Lampert states unequivocally in the EW interview that Season 4's overarching theme is cycles and origins.
Cycles and origins. Okay, that's direct.
And she then directly clarifies that because this is the theme, Season 4 will be grappling with Georgia's past in a major way. The physical arrival of her mother and stepfather seems designed to force her to confront where she came from.
Yeah, and potentially break cycles of behavior. Or maybe repeat them.
That seems to be the central question it sets up.
Beyond the return of her family, the other massive cliffhanger we touched on right at the beginning of this deep dive is the bombshell revelation that Georgia is pregnant, confirmed in both EW and Decider.
Can't forget that one.
And the sources make it clear that this pregnancy is set up as a central driving mystery for Season 4.
Absolutely. As the sources point out, Georgia recently slept with two key figures in her life. Paul, her new husband.
Right.
And Joe, the longtime confidant she finally connected with intimately this season.
So who's the father?
Exactly. And the showrunners are definitely leaning into this mystery for the next season. Sarah Glinsky confirms in EW that they absolutely are planning to draw out the mystery of who the father is in Season 4, keeping the audience guessing.
But importantly, Sarah Lampert reassures viewers in that same interview that the writers do know who the father is.
Oh, it's good to know.
Yeah, this isn't a mystery they're figuring out as they go. The identity of the father is a planned part of the story, which hopefully means the reveal, whenever it happens, will be meaningful.
Right, not just random.
There's actually a really cool, kind of surprising behind-the-scenes detail about this pregnancy reveal mentioned in the sources. Lampert and Glinsky talk about the creative process in the writer's room for this specific plot point.
Oh, yeah. What'd they say?
Lampert says they knew going into writing season 3 who they wanted the father to be, but they challenged the writers to try and change their minds.
Huh. Interesting approach.
Yeah, Glinsky describes spending an intense, contentious full day with the writing staff debating all the different possibilities for who the father could be and how each scenario would impact the storylines.
Wow, a full contentious day. I'd like to have been a fly on that wall.
Right. Lambert adds that they explored those other narrative paths stemming from different potential fathers for a few days.
But ultimately, despite exploring other options thoroughly, they landed back on their original choice for the baby's father.
Exactly. And Glinsky reflects that the process of debating and exploring those alternative scenarios didn't derail their plan. It actually confirmed their initial choice, and in her words, made it richer.
Huh. So the debate actually strengthened their conviction.
Seems like it. Suggesting the debate helped solidify why their chosen father made the most sense for the story they want to tell in Season 4. It's a great little peek into how even major plot points can be debated and refined in the creative process.
Finally, for a concrete look ahead, the production source you provided gives us some tangible information about Season 4's status.
Yeah, what does it say?
It's confirmed and listed as in development pre-production on a production list.
Okay, so it's officially happening.
And it even provides a listed shoot date, June 01, 2025, and the location, Toronto, Arkinane, Canada.
June 1st, 2025.
Hang on. These sources were published around June 5th, 2025.
Exactly. This timing suggests that production might be slated to begin right around the time these articles and reviews were coming out, giving us a real-world timeline for the show's future.
These final details, straight from the showrunner's intentions, insights into the creative process, and actual production schedules. They provide concrete information about where the story is headed and the major mysteries that will drive Season 4. Yeah, it gives you value beyond just a summary, hinting at the future based directly on the sources you provided.
So, as we bring this deep dive into all you need to know about Ginny and Georgia Season 3 to a close, let's maybe pull together some of the key insights we've extracted from your sources.
Good idea. Quick recap.
We've seen Georgia execute a dramatic legal escape, though one with significant moral costs, particularly for Austin.
Yeah, poor Austin. Leading to painful, profound changes and struggles for both him and Ginny, that no going back theme.
Right. We explored the complex web of relationships in Wellsbury, from Georgia's intertwined connections with Joe, Paul, and Zion,
Including that significant step forward with Joe and the looming mystery of the baby's father.
to the struggles of the May group members like Max and Marcus grappling with their own burdens and mental health challenges.
And we saw how the sources highlight the show's ambitious approach to tackling a range of serious social issues relevant to teens.
Noting the input from mental health professionals that aims for authentic portrayal, even if opinions on execution can vary sometimes.
And we delved into that fascinating, research-backed psychological analysis from one source, applying Freudian concepts to suggest that Georgia's most extreme actions are rooted in a personality imbalance.
A dominant-eyed, underdeveloped superego stemming from her traumatic past, offering a potential why behind her chaotic and often violent behavior.
It's a heavy show when you lay it all out.
The sources collectively emphasize how the show manages to blend that high-stakes drama, the humor, and these deeply serious topics, making it both compulsively watchable and, at times, quite thought-provoking, particularly in its handling of mental health and identity.
Yeah, balance is a lot.
We hope this deep dive, drawing directly from your materials, has given you a thorough yet efficient understanding of Season 3, delivering those aha moments and surprising facts right from the source.
And building on everything we've discussed, the showrunner's comments about Georgia trying to change, the physical arrival of her past in the form of her mother and stepfather, the explicit Season 4 theme of cycles and origins, and that psychological analysis detailing her patterns rooted in trauma and an underdeveloped moral compass. It leaves us with a pretty compelling question to ponder, doesn't it? One that feels central to the show's future, directly from the material.
Given that her origins are now quite literally present in Wellsbury, and Season 4 is explicitly themed around cycles, Can Georgia truly break free from her deeply ingrained past patterns and the psychological drivers behind her actions as the showrunners hope for her rebuilding arc?
That's the million-dollar question.
Or are the immense challenges of her secrets, the looming pregnancy mystery, and the return of her family's trauma just too deeply rooted for her to finally create the stable, safe life she claims she wants? It's definitely something to think about as we look ahead to what comes next.
Thank you so much for providing the source materials for this deep dive. It was truly a fascinating journey into the many, many layers of Ginny and Georgia Season 3.
Yeah, it was great getting into it. We encourage you to mull over the questions we've raised, drawing from the showrunner's own hints about the future. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.